The Candle in the Forest by Temple Bailey. The small girl's mother was saying, "The onions will be silver, and the carrots will be gold, and the potatoes will be ivory," said the small girl, and they laughed together. The small girl's mother had a white bowl in her lap, and she was cutting up vegetables. The onions were the hardest because one cried a little over them. "But our tears will be pearls," said the small girl's mother, and they laughed at that and dried their eyes and found the carrots much easier and the potatoes the easiest of all. Then the next door neighbor came in and said, "What are you doing?" "We're making a beefsteak pie for our Christmas dinner," said the small girl's mother. "And the onions are silver and the carrots gold and the potatoes ivory," said the small girl. "I am sure I don't know what you're talking about," said the next door neighbor. "We are going to have turkey for Christmas, and oysters, and cranberries and celery." The small girl laughed and clapped her hands. "But we're going to have a Christmas pie, and the onions are silver and the carrots gold." "You said that once," said the next door neighbor, "and I should think you'd know they weren't anything of the kind." "But they are," said the small girl, all shining eyes and rosy cheeks. "Run along, darling," said the small girl's mother, "and find poor Pussy Purrup. He's out in the cold. And you can put on your red sweater and red cap." So the small girl hopped away like a happy robin, and the next door neighbor said, "She is old enough to know that onions aren't silver." "But they are," said the small girl's mother, "and the carrots are gold and the potatoes are—" The next door neighbor's face was flaming. "If you say that again, I'll scream. It sounds silly to me." "But it isn't in the least silly," said the small girl's mother, and her eyes were as blue as sapphires and as clear as the sea. "It is sensible. When people are poor, they have to make the most of little things. And we'll have only a pound of steak in our pie, but the onions will be silver." The lips of the next door neighbor were folded in a thin line. "If you had acted like a sensible creature, I shouldn't have asked you for the rent." The small girl's mother was silent for a moment. Then she said, "I am sorry. It ought to be sensible to make the best of things." "Well," said the next door neighbor, sitting down in a chair with a very stiff back, "a beefsteak pie is a beefsteak pie, and I wouldn't teach a child to call it anything else." "I haven't taught her to call it anything else. I was only trying to make her feel that it was something fine and splendid for Christmas Day. So I said that the onions were silver—" "Don't say that again," snapped the next door neighbor. "And I want the rent as soon as possible." With that, she flung up her head and marched out of the front door, and it slammed behind her and made wild echoes in the little house. And the small girl's mother stood there alone in the middle of the floor, and her eyes were like the sea in a storm. But presently